Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over the 8th commandment as well as briefly mentioning the 9th and 10th commandments. So that 8th commandment is you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, which is calling us to be honest and truthful. And then the 9th commandment is you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, which is calling us to have a pure heart. And the 10th commandment is you shall not covet your neighbor's goods, which is calling us to have a generous heart. So let's start off by talking about the 8th commandment. And so this 8th commandment is you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And basically this is just a fancy way of saying don't lie and make sure that you're honest. To witness means to have personal knowledge and to truthfully tell what is known. So if you're bearing false witness, you're telling something other than what is true, other than what you saw. Because if you witness something, you're there, you're seeing it. And so all throughout the Old Testament, God tells these stories of how he's truthful and honest to his people. So he promised Abraham that he would be the father of a nation and that he would give him a son, and Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. He told the Israelites that he would help them out of Egypt and get them to the promised land, and he did that. So all throughout the Old Testament, God gives us these stories of how he's faithful and true to his people, and in turn, God is calling us to be faithful and true to him. And so this 8th commandment calls us not only to be true and faithful to God, but also gives us a responsibility to tell the truth in our day-to-day lives. And so to tell a lie is to deliberately make a false statement, and lies can really hurt other people. And so if we do tell a lie, the 8th commandment is calling us to own up to our lie. It's also calling us to not gossip about other people and spread false rumors, as well as keep our promises and just make sure that we're being a person of our word that really holds the truth to a high standard in their own lives. And so this 8th commandment is calling us to be true and faithful to the Lord, as well as gives us responsibility to tell the truth in our day-to-day lives, but it's also calling us to be a witness to the truth of our faith. And witnesses to the faith are people who speak and act based upon what they know and believe about Jesus Christ. And there have been people who literally die for the sake of their faith. They are martyred for their faith, for their belief in Jesus Christ. There are even children who are martyred for their belief in the Lord. And so a martyr is someone who dies for the sake of their faith. And martyr comes from a Greek word meaning witnesses. So while it's unlikely that we're going to be martyred for our faith, we are still called to be witnesses of the faith. And so what that looks like is being respectful, being honest, and just being truthful in our day-to-day lives, as well as living out the 10 commandments. And so we are called to be strong and courageous witnesses to our Catholic faith every single day, even as 4th graders. And so moving on from the 8th commandment, the 9th commandment is you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. And to covet means to wrongfully desire something. And that's when you really want something, but it's not what's best for you. And so to covet your neighbor's wife is something that might be a little bit more applicable when you're older, but it can still have meaning even when we're in 4th grade. And so this commandment is calling us to be pure of heart. And to be pure of heart means to live as God calls us to live. And the ultimate example of this is Mary, because she said yes to God and she lived that yes throughout the entirety of her life. And so we are called to love others and to believe in God's love for us and to ultimately say yes to his plan for us. And so this commandment is calling us to practice the virtue of modesty. And modesty is the virtue by which we think, speak, act, and dress in a way that shows respect for ourselves and for other people. And so that's just something to be conscious with about this commandment, is that it is calling us to be respectful of other people and respectful of ourselves, and to be pure of heart and to live in a way that we are being respectful of God's plan for us. And the 10th commandment also uses this word covet. The 10th commandment is you shall not covet your neighbor's goods. And it is calling us to have generous hearts in all the things that we do. And it's similar to the 7th commandment in that it deals with our property, but this commandment specifically is calling us to not be envious or jealous of what other people have. So envy is that feeling of sadness when someone else has something that we want. And this commandment specifically is calling us to be grateful for the things that we have and to also be generous with the things that we have. And so this 10th commandment is calling us to not be envious, to not be greedy, and to just trust in God in all the things that we do. And so this commandment specifically calls us to be poor in spirit. And to be poor in spirit means that we're depending on God for all the things that we do. We're depending on God completely. And so when we're poor in spirit, we're trusting in God, we're open to God's plan, and we're finding joy in the little things, and we're just being thankful for the blessings that we have in our own lives. And so that's a little bit about the 10th commandment and what it means to not covet your neighbor's goods, and specifically just to make sure that we are having a generous heart and being thankful for the blessings that God has given us. And so a little bit of a recap before it gets too dark out. The 8th commandment is you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, which calls us to be faithful to the Lord. It gives us a responsibility to tell the truth in our own lives, and it calls us to be a witness to the faith. And then the 9th commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, calls us to be pure of heart and to live with modesty. And lastly, the 10th commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods, calls us to live with a generous heart and to be poor in spirit and to completely place our trust in the Lord, as well as be thankful for the blessings that He has given us. Okay, and with this video, we have now covered each of the 10 commandments. And so hopefully you guys have a general overview of what each of the 10 commandments mean, as well as you know how to live the 10 commandments out in your day-to-day lives. And so from here, we're going to do a little bit of a review of the 10 commandments, as well as we're going to talk about Advent and Christmas and how we can prepare for the coming of the Lord. And so hopefully that gives you something to look forward to. But I hope you guys have a great break, and I hope you get to spend some time with your family and eat lots of great food, and I will see you guys when we come back. So have a good Thanksgiving.